Good morning. So we're about 5 minutes early, and usually when I come early, it's because we're going to do a little bit extra foam rolling. But today, we're here 5 minutes early. I'm going to have a little sip of coffee because I want to show you my two favorite activation and strength building exercises. So a lot of times you'll see, these mini bands, they didn't even exist like 10 years ago, right? So, and now everybody has a mini band. And I think that there's totally a place for a mini band. The lateral stepping, but you see people all the time just like overusing this thing like crazy. So I'm all about the mini band, but today I'm going to show you the two things that really have laid a foundation for most of my athletes. So most everybody has a stability ball. Most of my athletes that I train remotely, the ones that train with me, I usually make sure that the balls have air in them, but most people don't. So first and foremost, please put air in your stability ball. And the first exercise, because today in mobility, we're gonna work anchoring. And we're going to work that inner thigh muscle. But if you have that stability ball, you're going to have your feet nice and straight. You're going to anchor your feet so your heels are ever so slightly outside of your toes. You will immediately feel an activation in the inner thigh. And from here, we're going to just squeeze the crap out of the stability ball. Hips to the back, work that little bit of hip hinge. So I don't want you to stand straight up. Push your hips back so you have a break in the hip. Walk the feet into the stability ball and then strengthen and activate the inner thigh muscles, also known as the adductor, the adductor group. And from right there, you will start to feel a little bit of mostly inner thigh, but when you strengthen one muscle group, its opposing muscle group actually becomes more neurologically active as well. So if you think about it this way, if I flex my bicep and I get a concentric activation here, my tricep has to eccentrically load and lengthen at the same time. It's not just this one's doing nothing, right? So if I start to strengthen and anchor in, all of a sudden I get an eccentric load or a little bit of more length through the abductor or the glute med, piriformis, which is usually left hanging when the glutes start to fatigue or they deactivate a little bit. So there's many ways to have that conversation, but the adductor isometric hold 5 seconds at a time. Okay, so the next exercise is a barbell exercise. So ultimately, although I love movement and mobility, I'm also a strength coach. So I believe that once you start moving well, you then have to build strength around that movement if in fact you want that to maintain its movement. So we're going to use that same principle of anchoring when we do our straight leg deadlift. We're going to start this as a traditional deadlift. So the bar will be under the knees. I actually teach it so that you're actually touching the shin with the bar. And that's just the safest way to do that. With a lot of athletes, I'm 6 feet tall. A lot of taller athletes, I use a DC block that actually brings the bar up a little bit. But we're going to start with feet anchored, so the heels ever so slightly outside of the toes, and we're just going to grab just outside and we stand up. From right there, we're going to work the hip hinge, set the anchor at about hip width with the feet, pushing the hips back and then straight back up. Push the hips back and straight back up. So we go from a traditional deadlift into a straight leg, also known as a Romanian deadlift, to really strengthen the lower body and the posterior chain. So the combination of those two exercises are really, really powerful anchors in most of the programming I do with my athletes, both professional as well as amateur athletes. But pretty much everybody I get to work with takes what they do quite seriously. So I know that you will benefit from that as well. So let's go ahead and tomorrow here in the United States is the 4th of July. So today's kind of a strange day. Some people took a long weekend and they're gonna not work tomorrow. And then a lot of people are working today. They'll take tomorrow and the rest of the week and make that one a long weekend. I always thought that Canadians, I'm a dual citizen. Let's grab the foam roller, just put it right in the belly of the calf, and just a little bit of movement through the belly of the calf with the foam roller. So we're not moving the foam roller, rather we're moving the leg. And we're just using it as a little bit of pressure through the belly of the muscle. Canadians are always famous for just moving holidays to Monday. So it was Canada Day on Saturday, the July 1st, and I'm sure most of you Canadians don't work today. So good on ya, and then you get a long weekend. So it might be a little bit light in attendance here on Monday, but anyway, now we can use the foam roller just to move the leg over top of it, create a little bit of heat through that calf. And let's just do a little bit of flossing over here on the left side. Make sure that we can evert and invert the foot. I'm at my 1-year anniversary of breaking my ankle last year. It's healed so well. I forget which ankle it was, but I figure it was my left because I was able to keep driving. So there's pumping the gas pedal. I credit my daily consumption of collagen to the healing process that for me went really, really well. Okay, good. Working through the calves. All right, let's go ahead and get onto the anterior, so the front side of the hip. So we're right in the front side of that hip capsule, anterior lateral. Working through the hip capsule just a little bit. Good. That feels pretty good. So when it feels good, it means it's maybe like a little bit dull. It's not spicy, right? So I don't usually go into the belly of the quad either, because pain response to me shuts the body down, doesn't get a tissue release. Work through that anterior capsule. That's going to ensure that my that my glutes are going to have a chance to have that optimal firing. And from right there, let's go ahead and take it into a standing position. Grab onto something so you're stable. And let's just grab the foot in the back. That's one of those little check-in things. And you can see that that left knee is behind the right knee. So that I know that not only just the quad, because a lot of people with tight hips will show me this. We want that hip back. Good. And then let's hit that other side. It's a little check-in. Ooh, right side's a little bit tighter. Not unusual to have right side, left side, a little bit different. Open that hip up behind. Let's hit each side one more time. If you cannot grab your foot, we want to go ahead and you can take that foam roller and you can create heat through the quad. Just using it as a big gua sha tool, or like even self-massage. So using your foam roller in a different way to work through that quad, maybe through that VMO, that little muscle down low, and then go back to it. Okay, right hand balance. Now that left quad has a little more heat in it. I didn't really have a problem to start with. We're just taking that back, and then we'll take the other side back. There we go. And good. All right, next one, let's go ahead and have a seat on the foam roller. So we take that normal foam roller, just gonna sit right on top of it. We're gonna work through the abductor, the lateral part of the hip. That is what typically gets tight. It is the external rotators of the hip So we're just going to go ahead and open that up and just be able to get through it. For me, it's not spicy, it's a little achy, and I can definitely tell I trained this weekend. And those of you that are following all of us, we're all following each other in Strava. So in our Strava feed, we can kind of see what the community, the ECFIT community is doing. And there's all different layers to the people that I get to be around. Some of us, we just all follow each other on Strava, so we're Strava friends. Some people are on my Instagram, so we're Instagram friends. Some people I work with one-on-one, some people buy my programs and just loosely affiliate. So there's all different layers. But the bottom line is we all share one vision, which is to be the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. All right, working through that lateral aspect of the glute there. Good. Okay, next big reach we want to do is 2 hands overhead. So let's go into a full kneeling position. We're going to anchor the lower body. So when I say anchor, I'm really talking about internally rotating the hips and activating the adductors. Internally rotating the hips, activating and strengthening the adductors, the inner thigh muscles. So you can see that my feet are outside the knees. That puts me into, and it puts you into internal rotation. From right there, we're going to take that foam roller, reach it as high as you can. From this position, you're going to get a stretch through your belly. You're going to get a stretch through your psoas muscle, which gets a lot of blaming for tightness in the hips, which it deserves a little bit, but not all of it. All right, so hips are to the back, and then hips are to the front, and a big reach, just a little bit to the back. Get that tension in the belly. Unload it by shortening the hips, and then load it. Load that front line of the body. And back, and one more time. Loading the tissue, upregulating the nervous system to the front side of the body, holding everything nice and strong and long. Good. All right. So let's go into a 90-90 position. If you have big toe issues, this might not be your favorite exercise, but from this position, 90 degrees in this knee, 90 degrees in that knee, you're just going to stand up. So this is a little bit activating. We're asking muscles to work. So this will reinforce mobility by getting stronger. A 90-90 split squat. All right, so straight up. Good. We're just going to do 5, 3, and you want to just assess. Does that feel smooth? Does that feel clean? Do you feel confident with that? If that back hip is tight, it's going to inhibit this glute just a little bit, and it'll inhibit its own glute. So again, if this hip is tight, the one that's down, this glute is not going to work as well. All right? Right hip up, great posture. 90-90 split squat. All the way down. 2. Hear all kinds of popping and cracking. Good. 3. Just 5. 4. Good. And 5. Good. So let's keep working the 90-90 position. Half kneeling, 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. We want to anchor the hip. So this back hip, I want it to come to the midline. A lot of you, as soon as this right hip comes in, this left leg is going to go out. So what we're going to do is use the right hand, right hip down. So if you're not there, meet me there. The right hand is going to be a hand driver. We're going to take that right hand across the left knee, and from right there, elevate, pull the ribs off the hips, keep that left knee in towards the midline, and then just come right back. So it's a hand driver, right hand. As soon as I start to turn, this right hip is going to go in towards the midline. Don't let the left knee go out, and just push that left knee over toe, and then come right back. 2, 3, just 5, 4, and one more time. Left hip in, or right hip in. Good. A lot of times if I'm working with an athlete and it can have an extra set of hands, and I start to see that if just go ahead and change sides. If your left hip, when it comes in, this right knee goes out, I will put my hand right here, and we'll do a little bit of what we call warding. And so when we ward, it's because I'm asking this adductor to fire. So if we push into the hand there, this adductor's firing, it's going to give permission for this abductor over here to lengthen. And it's kind of an advanced thought process. Push in, 2. So now rather than pushing that right knee in, I'm activating the right adductor. Good. Some of you might be getting cramps. It's not a bad thing to get a cramp. Sometimes it wakes a muscle up. All right, so we've done our 90-90 split squat. We did some 90-90 hip rotation. Let's put the hands on the hip bones. And all we're going to do here, the principles of foundation training is really to use the weight of our own body to optimize the way the body works, or re-optimize if you find some tightness from training. So from right here, we've got softness in the knees, softness in the hips, break the hips to the back. We use measuring sticks, so tuck 3 fingers under, thumbs on your bottom rib, pinkies on your hip bones. That ensures that we maintain the space between the ribs and the hips. And just push the hips back. Work that hip hinge. If it becomes spinal flexion, that's when you start to lose the space between the ribs and the hips, right? So we use the measuring sticks to make sure that we're in fact getting a hip hinge. 2, push your hips back. 3, just 2 more. Everything's kind of happening in 5s today. 4, 1 more. Push the hips back. And good. Now, we can enhance activation of the posterior chain by acknowledging and using the arms. So all we're going to do is push the hips back. Knees are soft. Toes are on the ground. Pull the ribs off the hips. Hands pulling your shoulders away from your ears. From right here, this is called long wing position. We're going to scoop the hands forward. And just using the weight of the hands, we're getting more activation of the hamstrings, glutes, calves, everything that leads into that plantar fascia. And we need to strengthen the posterior chain to ensure that the back side of the body works really, really well, holds us up against gravity, especially if we're running a marathon. Okay? All right. Knees are soft, toes are on the ground, hips to the back. Pull your fingertips away from your ears. Scoop from the bottom. Push your hips back, come straight back up. We're just going to go in and out of that 5 times. 2, every time you want to feel those hamstrings. Pull your toes in, make sure your feet are anchored. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, good. Let's go into a split stance. Anchor your feet. So your back heel is going to be outside of your toes. Pull your ribs and hips nice and tall. Float the hands to the height of the heart. And then lift those hands up high. So this decompression, elevation, work the diaphragm as we expand the rib cage. All right, so right leg in front of left. Left heel is off the ground. Left heel is also lateral from the midline. Hands to the height of the heart, and then elevate that nice and tall. You don't want to go all the way into the back seat. Just reach. If you had a baseball cap on, your hands would be right over the top of your baseball cap. From right there, I want you to take a big breath. And then exhale. And as you exhale, don't let your ribs come down. So you inhale, ribs come up, and you exhale, ribs stay up. And good. Let's go one more on the other side. So now left leg is in front of right. Anchor your feet. That brings your hips into that anchored, internally rotated position a little bit. Strong position. Float the back heel. Still a little bit of a 50-50 weight distribution. Hands to the height of the heart. Pull the ribs off the hips. Feel the tension in your belly as you elevate. As you elevate. If you feel it in your low back, I want you to just tip forward just a little bit. So when you go into this position, if you feel your low back light up, just see where I'm at? Just lean forward just a little bit. Right here, nice long through the belly. Use the diaphragm, nice big inhale. And relax. All right, let's go into a big wide stance one more time. We're just gonna go a little bit of glide and reach and then call it a morning. So nice soft knees. Push your hips to the back. Anchor your feet, toes on the ground. Glide to the right. Keep the right knee in. Glide to the left. Keep the left knee in. Glide to the right. Take the left hand. Reach across. It's a hand driver. It's exactly the same thing as we did with 90-90. When we reach across, that hip is coming into the midline. So gliding is about hip decoupling. Boom. Good, 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 and good. Little bit of gliding, hip decoupling. So we talk about the position of the pelvis, we talk about stacking the head, we didn't talk a lot about thoracic spine mobility and strength today, because we really focused on the lower body. Anchoring the feet, which in turn anchors the hips. Internal rotation of the hips, strengthening internal rotation of the hips so that we can in fact strengthen the lateral aspect of the hips. You guys, if this intrigues you at all, I've got some big upgrades coming with my online programs. I hope you'll inquire. Everything's in the notes. Just visit my website, shoot me an email. I really appreciate. I think this might be episode 99. So next week is a big week, and I hope you're doing really, really well. Stay healthy, stay strong. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Peace.